legends, Daniel Midson-Short.
Thank you, Miss Contest Master. G'day, Toasties, how you going? Good to see ya. Judges, how are ya? Oh, it's great to be here. My fellow Americans. I know that you think that's how all Australians talk, and I understand that. I do. And I've realised, living here as an Australian in America for a couple of years now, that there's a lot of myths and legends about Australia that you guys all think that aren't actually true. So I thought today I'd take a couple of minutes and just share a couple of my favourite ones that I've heard, so maybe you guys can spread the word for me as well, because to be honest, I'm kind of getting tired of having to answer the same thing all the time. So can you help me out with that? Sure. All right. So let's start off with what everyone talks about the most is Australian animals. Everyone loves Australian animals. You have crocodiles, and you have emus, and echidnas, and kangaroos, and of course we have koalas. Now everyone loves koalas. Koalas are a little bit sneaky. Sometimes they stow away in your bag when you're travelling. And I had one little guy stow away last time I came back from Sydney. This little guy here. Now, like Faye, he was actually made in China, but anyway. Everyone says to me, oh, koalas, they're so cute. Do you keep a koala as a pet? Well, the thing is, if you look closely at a koala, they have very razor-sharp claws, and they kind of, if you get close, they smell badly. They kind of smell like a mix of kind of like urine and dirty socks with just a hint of eucalyptus. So they're not the best pets to have. It's kind of like saying, would you keep a raccoon as a pet? Maybe not. The other animal that people talk about is kangaroos. Now, we all know what a kangaroo is, like a really oversized rat. And everyone says, there's this question people ask me, oh, is it true that Australian kids ride kangaroos to school? Well, I wish it was, man. How would you do that exactly? I think what you'd do is you'd wait for the kangaroo to kind of be eating some grass peacefully, and then as a little kid you'd run up and you'd kind of jump on the back and just hold on and just jump around a little bit, and maybe eventually the kangaroo would find its way to your school. That's what I think would happen. But unfortunately that myth isn't true. But if someone asks me, I tell them, of course, yes. The other thing people ask me about is sports. Now, Americans love sports. You guys have football and hockey and basketball and baseball. In Australia, we have two sports. We have cricket and we have rugby. Now, for those unfamiliar with cricket, it's a little bit like baseball, except you have a long pitch. They throw the ball at the batter, and the batter hits it as hard as they can, and then they run up and down. Now, this game can take 1 day, or it can take 5 days. Now the ladies here, I know you're thinking, oh, how could you watch cricket for 5 days? Aha, but the men have a secret. We can drink beer for 5 days. The other sport you hear a lot about is rugby. Oh, you like rugby? Well, rugby's a little bit different to American football. American football, I've learned, is very complicated. You have the coach and the quarterback and the plays and the stats and all this stuff happening. Let me explain how rugby works for you, okay? You have two tough teams of burly guys standing up with no padding and no helmets facing each other, and they run into each other until one of the teams dies. And then we all just drink a beer in their honour. Now, speaking about beer, this is one of my favourite myths that I hear about Australians. Hey, you're an Aussie. You must want a Foster's. Oh, don't we love Foster's? You've all seen that ad of the rugged Australian guy driving through the desert, and he gets to the pub and wipes off his brow and has a big Foster's. Sorry to tell you guys, but Australians don't actually drink Foster's. We don't really like it too much, and I can prove that to you right now, because if we did, this can would actually be empty. It also says on here, which I think is cute, it says, how to speak Australian, and it has 3 beers, and it says, this is called social networking. So there we go. Australians, Foster's, not so much. The other cliche I get a lot of the time is, hey Aussie, let's put a shrimp on the barbie. Where does that one come from? That's weird, because Australians actually don't call shrimp shrimp, we call them prawns. And we don't cook them on a barbecue. Who does that? You actually saute them or steam them normally, like you guys would. Well, this myth comes from, there's a famous Australian called Paul Hogan who was famous in the 80s for Crocodile Dundee. Does anyone remember that movie? Yeah. So it became so famous the Australian government said, aha, I know what we'll do. We'll get Paul Hogan to promote Australia to the world. That'll be great. So what they did, they got him a barbecue and a beer, and they put him in front of the Sydney Harbour Bridge on a main road, which is kind of like putting someone on the overpass of the 405 with a barbecue. But anyway, and Paul Hogan was there with his beer, and he said, come down to Australia and I'll put a shrimp on the barbie for you. And after 25 years, that is the only thing that stuck. Thank you, Paul Hogan. So to finish off, I want to talk about the Australian accent. Now, when you're from a different country and you travel, you realise that you have an accent suddenly. And so when I talk to people around here, they say, oh, where are you from? And sometimes they like to guess. So I kind of play, you know, the hotter, colder game with them. You know, so they'll say, are you from England? And I'll say, no, colder. Sweden? No, colder. Iceland? No, not literally colder. Just... And eventually they figure out I'm from Australia. And that's when the impressions start. We love that. Oh, good day, mate. Did a dingo eat your baby? Yes. Sounds kind of like English mixed with Irish and just a little bit weird, to be honest, but they try. So I thought as a last gift to you guys today, I would teach you how to speak Australian. Does anyone really want to know how to speak Australian? Yes. All right. So there's 3 things you've got to do. Number 1, no R's in any words. So if you're going to get in your car and you're going to go here and you're going to have a beer, no R's, okay? Second thing is kind of phrase everything a little bit like a question. Just lift it at the end, okay? No one can really tell if you're asking or you're telling. That's the second thing. The third thing you want to do is speed it up. Talk really quickly so no one can understand. And then add a little bit of nasal to it, all right? If you get it just right, you start to sound a little bit like a duck. Okay, that's the secret. So there you go. They're all the myths and legends I've heard. I feel kind of cleansed, actually. Kind of shared it with you. But you know what? I know you Americans. I know what you're like. I know that the more that I throw these things out there, the more they're just going to come back to me. So, as they say, if you can't beat them, join them. So you know what, Toasties, it's been great having a good old chinwag with you, but listen, I've got to head off because I've got my kangaroo waiting outside. He's going to take me to the airport. Got to jump on a Qantas jet for about 50 hours back to Sydney. It's almost cricket season, and my koala at home, he's almost out of Foster's. So cheers, mates. I'll catch you next time.